Thanks.
My name is Maryann Pagano. I am co-founder and chief executive officer of BlackHawk Data. Welcome everyone here in the room. Welcome everyone online. Welcome to our first edition, our Q1, March 2024 Women in Tech. It's also Women's History Month, so I want to kind of stop and say thank you to everyone that supported me, Jason, and the business to this point. It's been phenomenal and an awesome experience. I also want to take a minute to just kind of say a few words. Yes, I wrote them down. This month is a time for me to celebrate the strength, the determination, and resilience of women and people everywhere. We should use this month to find new ways to uplift each other and to find ways to bridge the gaps between our differences. So I'll tell you a funny story, which I'm sure no one will find funny but me, but I'll say it anyway. So everyone who knows me knows I have no personal life. So I haven't stopped for like 5 minutes over the weekend, and I watched the video of the remaking of We Are the World. For those that are not in my age bracket, that was the song that was by Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson. It was a way to bridge the world and bring the world together and try to make the world a better place. It was about, feeding to South Africa and all the problems that we're having at the time. And for me, it made me think about with History Month and things that we can do better for each other, men, women, to support each other and kind of get us through all the hard times that we go through. So thanks for those that have supported me, and that's my silly little story. None of my guys want to hear me tell my story, so we will skip my story, and I will go to my panel, and we'll start with Jill.
My name is Jill. I've been in the technology industry for 30 plus years, long time. I work for a company based out of Southern California now, covering the Northeast for them. Marianne, thank you very much for having me. One of my key customers in the New York City area. But I know a lot of you in the audience. I'm sure people out there been doing this a long time and have plenty of stories to share as we get into it.
Okay. Marianne, thank you for having us. I'm McPhillips with Tanium. I'm a director of strategic accounts, and I cover government markets here in the state of New York, government and education. So excited to share and hear some stories and talk to the folks afterwards.
Marianne.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for inviting me. And my name is Marianne O'Connor. I actually work for Staco Energy Products, which is a company based out of Ohio, focused on power quality and voltage regulation equipment, and I'm the director of Northeast sales. So have been in the tech industry working for about 35 years, and it's been a very interesting ride. So look forward to chatting.
So we're going to go through a couple of questions and kind of casual, so we'll kind of break it up however you guys want to. Let's talk a little bit about, and I will tell a story despite what everybody says. Let's talk about how we got into technology, what brought us to the tech field. I always tell people that you don't really find tech kind of finds you. It's not something that kind of dream to become someone in tech, at least from our age bracket. So I just found tech because it was just a job that I found. I was a receptionist at a solution provider at the time. I think we called us that back then. I was a Cabletron reseller. And then I kind of just morphed into a full-time inside sales rep for 25 years. And, one day, lo and behold, here I sit. So I won't tell any more of my story. So Jill, give a little bit of background into how you got into tech.
So it's interesting. I was an English major in college, and I wanted to be an English teacher. I student taught my last semester. I had a bunch of 7th and 8th graders, kind of driving me crazy. And I got to teach a computer lab, in addition to teaching some reading comprehension and various things to prep these kids for high school. And that was interesting. And when I graduated, I probably sent out 120 resumes, and there were no school districts that I came across that were hiring. So I went to work for a neighbor, and it was kind of the 3 guys in the garage type of reseller business. And learned a lot about manufacturing, just-in-time manufacturing and inventory control things. We sold a software package in that space. And I had to crawl through some ceilings and run cables and, roll up my sleeves and really get into it. And after 2 years of working in this very big warehouse, I went looking around for a better job. And I found myself a Sun Microsystems reseller And I'm still in touch with one of the hiring managers. I saw him this morning. I thought he was going to try to come down. But from there, got into sales, was an inside salesperson for a while, went into field sales, did some channel work, did some direct sales work. I'm back doing some channel work, smattering of some direct, customer engagement. But it's been, a wild ride. I've worked for some very large companies right here in this building, and I've worked for a few smaller companies. So I've pretty much seen it all, start to finish.
My story is somewhat similar. I started out as an inside sales representative, right? Calling on the phone, smile and dial. It was the late 90s, and so the internet was kind of flourishing, and that's where the hot jobs were. So that's kind of ended up. And, progressed into that inside position, wanting to move into the field. Also did a lot of channel work. Spent years in Chicago working there, and then kind of ready for my next challenge in life, and moved into the enterprise sales space in the government space in New York, and then also took the step into cybersecurity, which was a big change, which I had no experience for, but found somebody to give me that opportunity, and it's been a great experience.
Well, I loved math as a kid, and my dad was actually an engineer, and I was kind of fascinated with what he was doing. And oddly enough, it was my mother who said, "Why don't you go into engineering?" My father told me to go into business. And so I got my electrical engineering degree and started out doing motion control software for systems, and was in a lab and decided I need to get out of the lab. So I decided, let me change jobs. So I started as an inside salesperson, kind of learned the ropes of what sales was all about. Then kind of decided, hey, I'd like to try outside sales. So started for a small distributorship in the channel, and basically handed me all the catalogs and said, here's our customer list, here's the specs, good luck. And so I kind of dove into outside sales, and that was a lot of fun. It was definitely a learning curve. And so from there, then kind of worked in, that was more in the power side of it, then migrated over to rechargeable batteries, and managed the territory there, and then moved back into, power quality equipment, and currently work as a Northeast regional sales manager. So dealing with channel and selling and working on go-to-market strategy, which has been kind of fun. And I think what's been nice about my trajectory is I've gotten the experience of working with distributorships, with OEMs, with the manufacturer, and so kind of had a nice 360-degree view of the market and how all the players work together. So it's been kind of fun, but I've had a lot of supportive people along the way who have given me good advice and encouraged me. So it's been an interesting road.
I think it's fun when I've only been on the solution provider side, right? So I haven't had the ability, I haven't never been a manufacturer. I've never been on the distribution side. I've only been an inside sales rep in the solution provider space. So I haven't had that chance to see the channel work from the one side. So it's interesting that you guys have had that. And so we're all inside sales reps. Good as hell. So let's talk a little bit about, and I can start a little bit about challenges, right? Because obviously everyone has challenges when they're at their jobs, right? They have challenges in the industry, challenges with their bosses, challenges with coworkers. Yes, I'm telling the story. So for me, right, I think it was about 6.5 years ago, it feels like 600.5. I was an inside sales rep, right? Just doing what I do best, right? Doing my job, making my customers happy, keeping things flowing. And then things kind of happen and they change, and your bosses change, or the environment changes, or the company changes direction and no longer follows your direction, and things just happen, right? And I think that for me, it was being treated like I was just that person. I was just an inside sales rep. And yes, I love being an inside sales rep. And that was one of my favorite jobs ever. I wish I could be that today sometimes. But it's being told you're just that was really where my challenge started to come from, right? And then it was my partner, Jason's idea. This was never my idea. It was Jason's like, well, let's just quit and start a business. I'm like, sure, I'll just do that at age 49, sure. And then we did. And he's like, what's the worst that can happen? Nothing happens. And the challenge is to get from A to B, especially as a female, was so hard for me to be able to leave that, get to here, the middle piece was so hard because I think as a female, sometimes, listen, some of the men are super supportive. I have BlackHawk 11 is for the 11 of us who made a decision to quit a job, to start a business, and end up here. Yes, some of them are back, some of them are not, but those 11 were super supportive and super protective through that. But there was a lot that wasn't, both female and male. And I think that there's so many challenges where everyone's trying to make the big guys happy that they forget about the fact that we're women trying to support each other, and you become a target for everybody. And you lose so many friends along the way. It's a very hard challenge for people because the people you thought were your friends now are no longer your friends. And now you're watching your back no matter what you do because there's like, again, there's a target on your back. And it's like, well, we can't let her be successful. We can't let her look better than we can. And it was a very hard challenge for me. I know, Marianne, for you, we have similar and yet different experiences where we kind of both had difficult bosses, difficult people in front of us, right? Making our lives super difficult, almost causing the ripple effect of having to leave a job and go somewhere else.
Mhm.
So talk a little bit about that since we kind of have a very shared experience.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have, and I've been on both sides of that. I've had a boss who caused challenges and wanted to kind of interrupt your process, your success, getting to the next level. And you have to be confident in yourself and what you know and what you want, and be focused on that. I think it's very important. But I'm also very appreciative for the bosses that I've had who have really encouraged me, who saw me for who I was and encouraged me and said, you can do this, challenge me, give me a solution. And they kind of pushed you outside your comfort zone and made you better. So for those, it's a balance and everything, but it kind of puts into perspective the people who want to not feed or support your success or your personal development in your career. And so, but what's important is to identify that, stand up to it, know what you want, and pivot if you have to, and have some flexibility to be able to do that. So I think that's kind of important, to be flexible and pivot and ask yourself the important questions. Am I happy? What do I want to do? Where do I really want to go next? What do I want in a boss? What do I want in a company? And so those experiences lead to those kinds of questions that I just think help you get more self-actualized and reach a successful point in your career.
So I think we both have the same thing where you have to make a decision of, is this how I want to be treated? Is this how I want my career to look like, right? Do I want to be spoken to that way and put in a box and not be allowed to grow and do what I want to do and be told this is all you're allowed to do? And you kind of work for me, so that kind of stinks for you, but is that a box you want to be put in? And I think we both had the same experience where we did not want to be put in a box.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody says to you, I'm going to have you focus on distributors because they don't really know a lot about power, so you're going to seem kind of smart to them. Very dismissive and not supportive. So those are the things that to your point, they want to keep you in a certain spot.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be in that spot, then it's up to you to move on and get out. So.
I think you said something important about being flexible, because we do end up in situations that weren't by design. All of a sudden you have a new manager. It's not what you expected, but that ability to be flexible, assess your situation, and if it's time for a pivot, you go out and do that. And you make, we have our networks, right? Make sure you make yourself open, say yes to things that you wouldn't, because that's how you learn, that's how you gain more experiences and develop yourself.
I think a lot of times you're afraid to speak up too, right? You're afraid to say something. You're afraid to insult someone who says they're smarter than you.
Sure. Yeah, and surround yourself with the right people, right? I've been very lucky to have some very special bosses, mostly male, a couple female, two are actually in the room right now. Some people who mean a lot to me. But you have to take, certain things learn from the bosses who are doing it right? Learn from the leaders who are doing it right, and try to minimize, I always say, maximize someone's strengths and minimize their weaknesses. Try to take what you can from everybody you work with and you work for, but make sure, you're kind of picking up the good traits from the people that you can really relate to. I mean, I've had some very, very special managers in my career, and I think about them all the time in terms of the good things that they have done, the ways that they would handle, specific situations. And I had some challenges, right? We talked about discrimination as we were getting into this. I haven't faced a ton of discrimination, from being a woman in this industry. I faced some significant discrimination from being gay in this industry, and that's been really hard. And then I've had other managers, and other folks who have 100% supported me, shown up for me. My current manager, when I first started working for him, said, "Where's your wife? Where is she tonight? Bring her into the city. Let's take her to dinner. I want to get to know her." And then I've had leaders who have not stood up for me. I had an incident with a customer, right, and some homophobia coming off a customer, which was really inappropriate. And I had a boss who did not stand up for me and who would not speak up for me, and let me take the fall for a customer's bad behavior. So I feel like I've seen it all, but you really can pick so much good stuff up from the people around you, if you spend the time with them and focus on them and try to, pivot away from the bad ones.
Yeah.
So
I think it was Jennifer Lopez, right? I never quote, but I heard her say once on an award show that I thank the people who did not stand up for me. I thank the people that tried to hurt me and tried to stop me and tried to determine me not to do what I wanted to do, because those are the ones that made me stronger, and those are the ones that wanted me more. Again, I really quote her, but that was very good because it's powerful, because she does get beat on a lot, right? Because you are very happy for those that really tried to hold you back, because it made you want it more. It made you want to prove them wrong.
Prove them wrong. Yeah.
yeah, but what a waste of time to try to hold somebody back.
It is.
There's nothing productive about that.
Not really. So. What about you?
I mean, the challenge is, I think I'm similar to Jill, where I don't know that I've had any real discrimination for being a woman and getting opportunities, but I have seen women around me get overlooked for those big jobs, the CMO type position or the chief revenue type position. My experience has been, lack of experience has held me back, and finding somebody to take, an opportunity, give me an opportunity or a chance. And you have to be able, again, be open, be flexible, put yourself out there and demonstrate, not necessarily prove, demonstrate that you have what it takes to do whatever it is that they said you couldn't do.
Let's talk about the network. That was really important, because I think one of the things I try to tell a lot of the younger crowds, right, the people that ask me a question, is how did you get from where you were to where you are now? And I tell them it's all about using your network, right? I tell people that, and I've known you guys for both a really super long time, right? And I tell them, use your network, use who you know and who you've helped, right? For 20 years, I feel like I've given myself, and as an inside sales rep, you touch a lot of people, you touch a lot of vendors, distributors, right? So you build a relationship because you're constantly on the phone with them and you're constantly transacting with people, and they feel like you've taken care of them for a really long time. And then when you're sitting in a room, two people on a cell phone, you're like, well, what do I do now? He's like, call your network. I was like, okay. So you just kind of scroll through the phone, and I start calling you, I start calling Fran, I start calling you, I start calling everybody, just trying to tell people the story of what we're trying to do and why we're doing it, and what we're trying to accomplish and what we want the business to look like. And at that point, you're using your network to pay it forward, right? And they're paying forward now to you. And that's why kind of we're here today, is it's me again paying it forward once again to the next generation, to other people, to try to build them up. Because I think building the network is really an important piece. I think technology kind of holds people back from doing that, because the interaction, the not wanting to come out of your house and interact with people and meet people in person kind of holds you back a little bit, right? We didn't have that luxury. We were all in an office 5 days a week, so you didn't have that luxury. But I think that the network is such a huge piece, and I can't express that to people more, is to build your network around you, build people who have trust and faith in you, and that they'll pay it forward. The day you need them, they'll be there for you.
And also, I'll add to that, make sure you're connecting with people who there might not be a direct reason for it, right? So you might be working an account with somebody and you're going to build a relationship with that person, but then there's, somebody who's supportive to them, or a different account that you're not involved in, but hear people's stories and reach out and get to know, people, even if it's not going to benefit you at that moment. Right, because then you could be able to, call on them, or they might need you for something. I always said I wanted to be a headhunter, after this, because I feel like I know so many people that would be perfect for a specific job that comes up, and it's just really pays off to be friendly, to be warm, to spend some time being interested in other people.
Genuine, real.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was interviewing for my current position, I had to go back and say, okay, who they want like 6 or 7 references. Who can I have be a reference for me? And then I felt really good that I had kept in touch with certain people and really got to know, people well. They knew me well. And so it was pretty easy to write that list, and I had perfect faith that they were going to have the right things to say about me because I had invested that time in them and building those relationships. So.
But the opposite happens, right? If you don't do right by them, or you dismiss people, or you don't treat them fairly, that does come back at you. And then you don't have those 6 people for references.
Sure.
Well, and that's part of the building the network is like it's your own brand out there, right? You want to treat people the way that you want to be treated, and you want to always, as a business development or salesperson, I've certainly been in like hard conversations with a client or with a partner, and it's, in my experience, it's best just to, put the truth on the table, put the current state on the table, and you work through it as partners. Keep your reputation intact, because 6 months down the road, 2 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you run into those people again. It kind of is a small world, and it's good to have those, have that good reputation in the network that you've built.
Yeah, it's definitely a small world. I remember when I first got into the power industry, I thought, oh my God, there's so many people. How am I going to get to know who all the players are? And then after a few years, you're like, wow, you realize what a small world it is. But I have to say, I was totally blown away when I was working for this one company by one person who, when I met them, they were real, authentic, and they went out of their way. And a lot of people don't do this. They went out of their way to really connect me to the people within their company and support me. And honestly, that person is you, Marianne. I have to tell you, I've never met somebody like you in the industry before. And I used to talk about it with Fran, and I was like, I want to be like her. She's just wants to help, and that genuine quality of wanting to help, that is great as a human being, and it's invaluable in your personal relationships, and I think also in your work relationships, because you think, I want to work with her and for her and be around her. And I have to say, it was really inspiring, because I kind of changed how I even supported my coworkers and how I was dealing with people. So you are a perfect example of that in this industry.
We call those super connections.
Yes. And having those relationships, and you value them, because then friendships develop out of it too, and it just makes your life richer for it. So I just want to say thank you. You are a true inspiration and a really wonderful example of that. Just want to say that. So
it's hard to keep that, because you just, it's one of the things Sarah and I were talking about yesterday, right? Is being able to bridge the gap between just being on a stage and talking about yourself and talking about experiences. Then you walk off the stage and you just walk off the stage. No one talks to you. You don't make eye contact with anybody. You don't speak to anybody. And that's not really what it's about, right? Because if I'm going to stand on a stage and I'm going to talk to people, if you send me a LinkedIn message, now it takes me a little while, but I do get back to you. I will let you come in and have coffee with me. I will sit down and give you my time, right? Because that's what it's about, right? If I'm not going to follow up with it at the end, why am I doing it at all? I think there's that realness, that authenticity that I think sometimes we lack in the industry, because everything, and listen, we're in a cutthroat industry, right? So it's always a hard.
And there's a lot of arrogance.
There's a lot of arrogance.
And the arrogance is hard to deal with. So to deal with people who don't have that and are not approaching it that way is just phenomenal.
And that's kind of how, again, we use the network, and we used all that to build the brand, right? And we lean on that. We lean on being able to use that to show that we are we're real people building a business, building a brand. We want to be real to our vendors, real to your clients. I mean, that's what it's about, right? If I'm going to be fake and phony, it's not something that I really kind of want to do.
Yeah, and behind your brand is really your hard work.
Yeah,
right. It's all about over delivering and keeping your promises, and make sure you're communicating with people. And
that's because I think it lends itself to reputation, and that reputation is very important. And you spend years building it, so it's valuable to have the people to kind of give back what you also receive, but put it forward.
Pay it forward, yeah.
You do. You have to pay it forward. I think that's what I tell people all the time, right? Again, I've did a lot for people over the years, right? We've had very long-standing relationships, and I've always given back. And then when I need people the most, right? When Jason and I are sitting there in a room with a phone and nothing to do, he's like, "What do you do now?" I'm like, "I have no idea. This is your idea. You figure it out." He's like, "Just make calls. You know somebody." And I was like, "All right, whatever." And you're calling these people who you've done so much for, and they they feel a need to want to do something for you back. And that's the most important advice I give people, is that moment is important. It doesn't matter if they're a CIO or a VP of sales. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter if they're the inside sales rep just checking on your order. Everybody's equally important, because one day that inside sales rep checking on your order is going to be a CEO sitting there like this.
Well, someone once said to me, you treat the janitor the same way you treat the CEO.
Yeah.
So,
I always tell people that same thing. You never know, Wyatt was good one day. We walked in, we see the biggest commissioner in the city. He was just like, "Hi, I'm Wyatt." I was like, "Oh, that was pretty bold. Good for you." But you treat everyone the same across the board, so it doesn't matter who you run into. It doesn't matter if they're the head commissioner of the city or just the dude like down the hall fixing a PC. Let's talk a little bit about mentors, role models. I know it's really hard, because for me, I don't know if I really had any mentors or role models. I have supportive people. I'm not really sure I had a role model to look up to, because again, you go back to the year where there wasn't really many people out there to look up to. Or we could talk about how to become a role model, right? Because I signed up for CRN's mentorship program. So one of the things that we do as part of the advisory board is we're here to mentor and help other people, right? Men or women, it doesn't really matter as long as you belong to the leadership committee. And we're here to mentor and help other people. So we'll get picked, and then you'll spend some time with them and trying to teach them how to get where they want to be. I don't think I had many. I had very supportive men. I have Jason. I have I've met Keith today. Dallas is here. A lot of these guys, Ron came back. A lot of these guys have been there for me for 10 years while I tried to do what I had to do, but I had no one really when I was growing up to look up to. Did you guys have anybody?
My mom was a business owner, so I had it in my household, which was great. But I also had it from, my dad and my brothers. They taught me a lot of those skills you get in the early days. And then as I moved on, women and men alike have been great mentors to me, and, and building that network and also paying it forward, trying to be participant in mentoring programs, even locally here in New York, working with the SUNY system to help the young people coming up, that there's a whole world of careers out there that you can go after, and maybe not what you thought or what's in the textbook, so be creative. And I think the mentorship is really important, and being able to give that back. And even getting ready for this event, it was fun because I was able to go back and invite some of my mentors, men and women alike. Hopefully they're out there listening. And some of the people I feel like, maybe I was mentoring them, and like, hey, come, let's still keep our connection going and participate, because we can still learn from each other.
And it could be a friendship, not even a mentorship, right? Friendship. I mean, I've been around, again, both of you for a really long time. When I need stuff, I go and drinking with you and friends.
Yeah. I mean,
Nothing recently.
I feel like also as a channel rep, when you're dealing with your partners, you end up in that mentorship role.
Mm-hmm. You do.
I remember, a group of folks that I had to get them through a sales expert exam, and I had to, go through all the material with them and coach them through the test and the things that they had to do. And I get to still, that was years and years ago, but I still get to work with some of those people. So, we're peers, we're equals, right? But I feel like I got to lead them. And then I've had several, managers or people I've gotten to work with, that have acted as mentors in terms of showing me, how to get things done, how to be more diplomatic and maybe not as aggressive or demanding as we need to be sometimes. But, I've had some really good people in my career to do that with.
I'm fortunate. Like you, I had very strong parents who instilled confidence in me, and that there were no boundaries. You want to be an astronaut, go ahead. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a writer, do it, but do it well and go after it with passion. So it was great to grow up in that environment. I think like you, Marianne, I didn't have a tremendous amount of mentors, but I've had some key people in my life, from bosses who just would challenge me, or let's say to my current boss, who encourages entrepreneurship and in your thinking, which I appreciate. I had a friend of mine from college who was just one of those people who was a real leader, and she had a tremendous curiosity, and I thought, she just really keeps striving and learning, to learn and to find solutions. And, she was on the forefront of data science. So, when I look at that, and she was a real leader, like when we were in college, if something was lacking, she didn't say who's going to do it. She said, I'm going to do it. So that leadership take hold. So there's certain people in my life who had certain really lived an example that I said, I can take lessons from that. Or in the case of my one friend, she would push me outside my comfort zone. She'd be like, you can do it, Marianne. I go, nope. She goes, yes, you can. And you find yourself, you need those people in your life who are going to push you outside those boundaries, because then you realize, hey, wait a minute, I can do that. I do know that. And you learn more about yourself in that process. So those kinds of people in your life are very, very key to your development and connecting.
And when you have a good mentor, be open to the coaching they give you. And I often have conversations with my managers, and they are passing on knowledge of their experience, right? And my one manager a few years ago was from Spain, and he had a strong accent, and he would get excited when talking, and I would be writing down notes, and he's like, Autumn, you can't say exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hear what you have to say and then turn it into my own my own words and make that, but it was me being open to the coaching that he was giving, and not being, a lot of times you can get defensive and you put a wall up because you're like, well, no, that's not how I do it. But be open, because people are trying to help, and they do, there's plenty of people that want you to be successful, and that's, that's the magic of professional life.
And that's the point. There are people who want you to be successful. There are people that want you to be great and good and kind of raise yourself up. So there are people out there. You have to find the right ones. You have to weed out the bad and find the good. So one of my favorite questions always, because I don't have one, is work-life balance. For those that know me, I do work 24/7. Let's talk a little bit about work-life balance. I mean, for someone like me, it's a little bit harder. I gave myself an hour this week. Let's talk a little bit about work-life balance.
I have a lot of hobbies. I have a lot. I'm interested in a lot of things.
I'm busy.
Between skiing and taking care of horses and working in the garden in the summer, mountain biking. There's a lot of stuff that I like to do and that I'm interested in, and more stuff that I want to learn. And I guess, remote work helps, right? Because you can get things done early in the morning and late at night, when you need some time for some personal stuff. But I find, remote work and just the IT industry, in general, and sales, it's addicting. It's the roller coaster. We crave the highs, we deal with the lows, but it's really, really addicting, and it's hard to shut the laptop. It's really, really hard to shut it down. And I can close it because I know I'm going to open it back up in a few hours, or early the next morning. But it's a struggle to put it in its place, and other people in other industries that are a little more 9 to 5 don't really understand. Sometimes spouses or family members don't really understand. Well, why do you have a call at 3:00 in the morning dealing with somebody from another country? They don't always get it. But it's a challenge. I'm working on it every day.
It's definitely a challenge, but I think you carve out your boundaries. When I wrap up my day, I work out of the house, kids coming home, dinner's got to get prepared, whatever. But, when the day's over, I put my list together of what I need to work on the next day. So I always end my day with that, so it's fresh when I come in the next day. But I set my boundaries, and you know what? I might keep my phone with me till about 7:00 at night, but then it goes in the office, and I'm done. I'm not going to get that phone really until I'm out to the bus stop the next morning, getting out my door and starting my day, and setting those boundaries. And that evening time is for my family, and I wake up early in the morning, but that early morning time is for me. So, I have my practices that I do in the morning that help me, stay productive and learn. But you have to carve out the boundaries, and don't apologize for it, because you do need that recharge, and your company or your boss is going to, you're going to be more productive with them when you're fresh and you let yourself take a break and get some personal recharge.
No, I think it's very important. I tend to be a little bit of a workaholic, so and I'm known for my 2 a.m. emails.
I'm 4 or 5 o'clock, so I'm good. My team loves the weekend
I'll send you
emails.
one at 5 a.m. But I think it's really important to have passions outside your work. For me, it's creative writing. So have something that takes you away from what you're doing probably 10 or 12 hours a day, and really put your heart and soul into that, and have something that fulfills you on a different level. And also what I try to do as because sometimes I go and a month passes, I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't really gone out, I haven't done much, and I really make sure to put stuff on the calendar. I'll say I want to go to this play or this destination I want to go to. I'll look out for months and put things on the calendar with family, friends, events, and this way, if I have it out there, it pops up and I'm like, oh, I have something to do. And I'm not going to send 2 a.m. emails today. So I think it's really important to have passions outside your work and really, to your point, carve out time for the people that are important in your life and the passions that are important in your life. So.
Yeah, when I went to work for a new company and I got no email on the weekend, I was just so shocked. Of course, I was looking at it, and when people didn't respond to something I sent on the weekend, I was so shocked. And then I learned to accept it.
One day I will too.
You delay the email so it all goes out Monday morning at 8 a.m.
I do some of that. I do the ones that I'm mad. I hold them till Monday morning. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. I know it's a weird topic. So for me, obviously, I suffer from it, which is probably why I don't like to talk about it. I think that people always ask me, one of the questions I get asked is, when did you start using your CEO title? And I would say it's probably about a year or more before I could say the word. I still say it and I giggle. It's like a child. It's really terrible. But it was really hard for me to actually, I didn't want to have the title. I wanted Jason to have the title. I was very insistent upon, it's not going to work if I have the title. Let me be director of sales, literally anything else. But it was an insistence from him that you have to have the title. It's got to be you. But it took me a while to get used to it because in my mind, in my head, right, it's not a female title, right? So for me, I suffer a lot from imposter syndrome because I have a lack of belief in myself all the time, and I still do. That could make me humble, I don't know, or just crazy. I'm not really sure.
But it's like when you took on that role, look what you learned. You're not an imposter. You're taking care of all the things that you have to take care of. We all start new roles with our abilities, and then you have to learn, what it's going to take for that specific role. So I don't really believe in imposter syndrome.
I think I've actually looked it up. Okay, so WebMD defines it as having self-doubt, which I think is something all of us have had. Interestingly enough, they started the definition with, it was coined in the early 70s to describe professional women. And it also ended with, it's still used today towards women in the tech industry, which I thought was interesting. But in the definition, it also talks about, like, I think Mark Wahlberg, Tom Hanks, J-Lo was mentioned too. They all have had imposter syndrome. And it's, I chuckled at this question when I saw it because I thought about what was my first experience of it. And I thought back to high school when my older brother was coaching my friends and I on how to get into some party we weren't supposed to be at, right? And his term was, you got to Jedi them and make them believe that you belong. And, we did it and it worked. And then all of a sudden you start to belong. And that's really what it is. You get those experiences and you're like, no, I'm here, I'm doing it. I can do this.
Yeah. No, I think the experiences build confidence because I think I've been in meetings where, somebody will ask a question and I'm like, I probably don't know the answer. I'm not going to answer. And then somebody says exactly what I was going to say. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe I kind of do know what I'm talking about. And I've also been in meetings where a topic has come up and I've seen one of my female colleagues say something and everybody doesn't really react much to it. And literally 15 minutes later, a male colleague will say almost the same exact thing. And everybody's like, my God, that's a great idea. We should write that down. We should act on that. And I'm like, wait a minute, it was just said. So I do, but I think it's about building confidence. And I think the more you're in situations, you realize how much you kind of do know and then owning that.
Owning it is hard. I think the hardest moment I had was when I went to Best of Breed in Atlanta last year, and it was the top 500 CEOs. And I was like, oh, Jason, you got to come with me. I'm not going by myself. There's no way I'm walking in that room by myself. It's like, nope, go by yourself. I'm like, okay. And I walk in and open the door, and there's 500 people, and it's like one female there, one female there, and there's no place to go. And then you have to just own it. You have two choices. My first choice was, I go back and just cry until it was over and then get back on the plane. That was my preferred choice. But this here, I'm like, nope, get your ass in there, go sit down, pull up a chair, and get to work. And that's kind of what I did. And, I'm still uncomfortable doing that, but what choice do you have when
Yeah.
you're there?
It's the only woman in the room syndrome. Like
Yeah.
I'm the only woman on my team right now. It's crazy that it's that situation. But I was saying to you earlier, we're so used to being the only woman at the table usually.
Yeah.
And it stopped even making a difference to me because I'm just so used to it, which is a shame. It shouldn't be that way.
And when you do walk into a room, and I was in a design engineering firm about 6 months ago, and I walked for a lunch alert with one of my engineers, and we walked in, and I was like, I noticed that 50% of the room had female engineers in there. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I graduated in a class of 60 when I was one of 4 women with an engineering degree. So I actually was, I was very happy. It was very refreshing to kind of see. And and made the dialogue a lot more interesting with questions and what was discussed. So it was a positive.
And it's like, why does diversity matter? That
Correct,
comes up
true.
a lot. Why is this a problem that I'm the only woman on my team?
Yeah, very true. So before we run out of time, we'll go to one more. One of my favorite questions always is, what would you tell your younger self?
That you'll be amazed at what you learned from your failures and what the failures, like how they shaped who you became.
And maybe they won't be as bad as you think
They're never as bad as you think they're going to be. But each time you pick up, you figure out your next move, your pivot, you're flexible, resilient, all those things, and go. But that would be it. Is like, don't be afraid of failing because that's where you learn.
Yeah, I think it would be, don't let the insecurity overtake you, because I think sometimes we tend to doubt ourselves and we can be insecure, and that's guiding us and not really what should be guiding us. And my word for this year is fearless. I would say to myself, just be fearless, and be a little bolder. Take that leap. Don't think, oh, you can't do it, so I can't take that job. Do it and challenge yourself. And I think that's the advice I would give myself.
Yeah, it took me a long time to learn that you could go for things that you didn't know already.
Right.
You will learn that.
Right.
Have that confidence and the lack of self-doubt.
I think for me, it's about, yes, you can, right? Because I think you're so conditioned to think that you can, especially as a female. You are. You're always in second chair. You're always the other person in the room. And I think for me, it was knowing that I can and being able to do, right? And I think for me, if I look back, it was always fear that held me back. It was lack of confidence in myself, of my own abilities, and not being able to convince myself that I was good enough, that I was good enough to sit in a role that I'm in today. I was good enough to lead a business. I think people need to understand that they can. You can't be anything you want to be. I'm an inside sales rep. Turn CEO. You can be anything you want to be if you put your mind to it and your heart to it, something that you really want to accomplish.
Well, and those self-doubts that you have, everybody has them. So I remember, in a new career, being a little nervous about calling a client because I really didn't know my solution yet. And I'm like, they're going to know more than I do. But it turns out I actually knew more because I at least was the specialist on that product. But I was so afraid to make that call. And once I did, I learned, oh, he's kind of in the same boat I am. We don't know. We're both going to go find the answer and sync back up.
Well, I was going to say, I think looking at yourself, at the way people look at you, like, you know what I mean? You're knowledgeable, you're capable, the dynamo. So looking at yourself in the way that other people see and know you, and knowing that is who you are, and not doubting it. So I think that's.
And you care about your customers greatly. And
My relationship, my network is very important to me.
Well, that's what it goes back
It's
to.
who I am. It goes back to the network. I am my network, right? That network helped me. I think we have time for one more. So recommendation for men out there, right? Trying to grow their careers, whether it's tech or somewhere else. One recommendation.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Volunteer, get involved, find an organization. Toastmasters, I think, would be a great one for anybody young getting some experience, because being able to present into an audience and public speaking, it really builds a lot of confidence. So that would be a good one I would recommend.
Yeah, I was
going to say, find some people, stay in touch with them, build those relationships, see what you can offer them, be interested in what other people are talking about, what other people are going through, and just keep finding, more people and building from that.
Yeah. And, getting involved in organizations, staying connected. Even just to, if there's something you're interested in, taking a class, I took a class up at Marist College. It was, 2 classes in data center design, but it gave me just enough that I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So, feeding that curiosity and doing something about it to feed that. So.
And give yourself grace. If it doesn't turn out exactly how you expected, that's okay. You'll be able to figure it out.
So as we close out, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone that showed up today, everybody watching online. Thank you very much to my panel. I'll leave you with a few things. Success isn't about the end result. It's about what you learn along the way, and that's Vera Wang. I'd rather regret the things I've done than regret the things that I haven't done. That's Lucille Ball. And one of my favorites, it's important to teach our female youth that it's okay to say, yes, I am good at this, and don't hold back. Simone Biles. So thank you very much online. Thank you very much everyone in person. Thank you again to my panel. We will see you in June. Thank you. You're a pro. Oh, thank you.